Okay, so this is video number 2, and this is my interpretation of the strong inventory assessment that we took. And just like with the Myers-Briggs test, I was familiar with this assessment prior to uh, this assignment. What I found interesting about this, and this might be indicative of how people can change their interests over time, is that when I initially took this test for my career counseling class, I had a solid investigative score. My Holland score the first time was very clearly I, which was very unusual. Coming back to it and having taken the strong inventory exam, um, I have well, not completely changed. I'm still investigative, but it has added new kind of elements to it, and has actually changed what my original profile was. So, for me, so obviously starting when discussing this, if I were to discuss this with somebody not familiar with the strong inventory, I would first go over the 6 points on the Holland scale. Especially, and this is very important because the Holland scale is used in so many elements of career counseling, whether you are doing trait and factor or not. Um, and it really kind of is important to understand because you have these 6 different kind of career types that can match with different personalities. And so, uh, brief kind of synopsis: the 4 types, or the 6 types, sorry. You've got conventional, which is focusing more on organization. It's focusing. This is something that might be technical. It might be working in kind of a secretarial kind of element. Somebody who would do accounting, investing, those fall under conventional. You have investigative, which was what I originally was marked as, and this is your science, your medicine, your research. Somebody who really likes to do hands-on, who's strong with mathematics, is very more independent than working in a group. Enterprising, which would be managerial elements, business, being really connected to politics, being a strong leader, wanting to be the driving force behind things. That would kind of fall under the enterprising category. Social, working more closely with people. This might be teaching, might be more counseling, might be training employees. People who fall under the social category might be more comfortable working in groups rather than necessarily leading or being on their own. Realistic, this is very much more. This is the person who likes to work hands on. This is the person who likes to build, who likes to uh, use tools. This is also technical work, but this is more like working directly to repair a computer or doing outside work like landscaping. And then artistic, this is somebody who would be more focused on like music or self-expression or any kind of more creative talent. So as someone who, if I was explaining that to somebody, I would break it down in those 6 ways. To me, it's fairly clear. It is what it is. But as I was saying before, this time around, I didn't actually just get a singular score. I actually got a typical 3-letter score for the Holland score, and for me, my score ended up becoming a CIE theme code. So this means that my highest themes were conventional, investigative, and enterprising. And I think that that's really particularly fascinating because within the past year, I have shifted my perception of what I enjoy and what I am capable of. And I think that this score actually reflects that change in perception. Previously, I was very, very heavily into research is my strength. Research is what I like to do. But with recent kind of revelations about what I'm talented at, uh, pardon me, details like the fact that I do like to keep things organized, that I have a knack with with money, that I'm very much an enterprising spirit, that I could be a manager at some point. And so to see that those conventional and the enterprising elements are now joining the investigative, it feels almost kind of like a more well-rounded connection of what my interests are. And so um, now, of course, the strong inventory is it's not necessarily something to match you to a specific job. It is more designed to show how your interests and your interest range can connect to a wide scale of different um, career paths that may not necessarily have come up before in conversation or perception. The first time I took this, the top profession that was recommended based off of my interest level was engineer, which I had never considered that when I took this test. Again, this time around, it's changed slightly, which is good. It means my career paths have widened, that my perception of what I like to do has widened. Even my general interests have changed slightly, so it opens up new ideas. Um, Looking at the interest level in my scores, for the most part, most of my interest levels, particularly my top three, were very, very, very high, with the smallest one being, or the lowest one being realistic, and very soon followed by artistic, um, which makes sense. I do enjoy artistry and whatnot, but not really what I would want to do. Um, Based off of the information that I put in, my top 5 interest areas would be research, science, which those two didn't really surprise me. Those are things that I am strong in. But the 3 new ones that were added to this were office management, finance and investing, and taxes and accounting. And for me, that's really kind of fascinating because I didn't really become aware of how well I like to manage money, how comfortable I am with being in charge of finances and being in charge of putting together a budget and recognizing what needs to be done financially. And the office management kind of reflects that I'm developing that interest in being a manager, being a leader, being in charge of the delegation of tasks. So, um, so the second recording got cut off, but yeah. So picking up where that left off, I've been working with healthcare for a while, and or I've had experience being a healthcare provider or assisting with that, and it just is not something I feel comfortable with. I could never be a doctor. I can't stand the sight of blood. And then I seem to keep having tech issues. That's no good. But visual arts and design they don't work well with me. Um, and so, like, I just don't have that ability. I don't have that talent. So, again, no real surprise there. Looking into so breaking things down further. So my top 10 strong occupations, according to the occupational scales, shows, again, a lot of changes I wasn't expecting. My top one is a management analyst, followed by an auditor and a business finance supervisor. So that shows that a lot of that kind of wanting to be in charge, wanting to be the manager, wanting to be the leader, and controlling the money, controlling the documentation, um, taking the responsibility of what's going on. That's being reflected here. Um, Following that, again, a credit manager, working with more of the financial stuff. Engineer is still on this list at number 5, so the investigative is still there. Technical support specialist, an accountant, a computer programmer, financial manager, and software developer. So obviously a big thing that's focusing here is that there is more that focus on being a manager, being in a position of financial security, being maybe working in HR is something that's strong here. Um, Again, this is a big difference from my previous strong inventory where there was a lot more based on investigative, like being a researcher, being an engineer, being a chemist, all those different things. So this goes to show just how different people can change over time, even in a short time, like a course of a year. Um, and so for me, that was just a really fascinating kind of thing to see. And the more, and when I see that, it kind of confirms the fact that I do think I can do those jobs, and it taps into strengths that I had not previously anticipated. Um, Looking further along, so occupations that I don't really have that much interest in, again, medical illustrator, athletic trainer, artist, art teacher, interior design. Very clearly, there's a lack of interest in the arts here, so that's not all that surprising. Um, Going through the rest of the scores, so with the strong inventory, and I don't want to go through every little thing here, but essentially how the rest of the strong inventory works. It does look through the different kind of professions that would generally be in those different categories and sees how how your preferences match up with people in similar jobs, and how similar your interests are to somebody in that field. Um, the the other thing that is shown is personal style scales. Um, so with mine, the top 5 interests that they found, um, is that I prefer a balance of working alone and working with people, and again, that makes sense. Um, I think it's I think it's important to be able to work on your own, but also to recognize that group work is a necessity in a lot of ways. So uh, that's one element. I prefer to learn through lectures and books. I'm very much more focused on academic methods. This again makes sense for me. I've always been strong in lecture kind of halls. I This reflects that I am more focused on learning for learning's sake, not necessarily for practicality. Um, the strongest thing here in for my score was my leadership style. Is that style? I prefer to take control. I prefer to take the lead on things. This isn't surprising for me at all. I have been involved in leadership roles from the time of childhood. So, having been a Girl Scout, usually being a group leader for a lot of projects, this definitely reflects more of my individuality and my independence streak. I don't like to be a follower. I will follow people if I trust their leadership skills, but otherwise, I'm not going to do that. I prefer to take control. Um, Risk taking. Uh, I'm willing to take risks if it's kind of if the cost is negligible. Um, I'm comfortable taking a few risks, but it can't be a lot. It has to be, again, reasonable. And then, as I mentioned before, I do enjoy participating in teams. Being a part of a team is important. Uh, and that's a little separate from working alone versus working together, because working in a team can be its own kind of thing. You can be in a team and still work separately, but having a team means that you can actually kind of rely on other people and reflect on that. So, um, that is I feel like that's a pretty good, at least preliminary view of my scores, and so I've got to try and find a way to piece together the snippets of this video. So